I think there are a couple of reasons that make it really difficult as a young person to make a big move, like moving from the UK to Australia, but it's a risk that we're willing to take to provide better outcomes eventually for our family. And you thought Australia was the only place with public barbecues? Wow, look at these bad boys. Maybe not on the same level, right? So I'm out for a walk today, and this is usually when I'm in my head the most. So I thought it might be worth making a video whilst we're out. So this little bit of land is where Frank Woodall apparently got inspired to create the jet engine, which seems relevant when we're talking about moving from the UK to Australia. But as I said, when I'm on a walk, you might find this too. It tends to be when thoughts fill your head. So I'm going to try and empty a few of those thoughts today and see how we get on. Right now I'm in the park of, in the biggest park in Coventry, fourth most dangerous city in Europe, trademark. And this park used to be on my doorstep when I was growing up. My house used to be over the trees, just about 100 metres from here. I was very fortunate to sort of have this on my doorstep, although I didn't appreciate it at the time. However, that wasn't always the way it was for me growing up. There was a pretty big sliding doors moment, I'd say, when I got to about 9 years old, that basically I moved from one side of the city to the other, and outlook on life changed an awful lot. Incredible. Go out to record a little bit of footage, and the heavens are absolutely open. It's pissing down here right now. Kenilworth Road, Coventry. From the ages of about 11 to 16. This is my walk home from school through the mean streets of the fourth most dangerous city in Europe, trademark, obviously. No, I was pretty fortunate when I got to that age that this was my walk home, although I didn't appreciate it at the time. And I did actually get bus fare to take the bus for this sort of 1 mile long road journey. But invariably I'll end up spending the money on cola cubes and a bag of Tangy Toms from the shop and then just walk it. But yeah, this is when I was very fortunate in my life. To a large extent, I do feel like the environment around you does shape you as a person and will have some effect on your outcomes in life. Obviously, you will always still be you. However, I don't think you can underestimate how much you can be affected by the people around you and the environment around you. Well, that's bloody ruined my plans. Tree in the way. Yeah, 2 weeks before my 10th birthday, this is where we moved to. It's called Wayne Bodywood School at the time on Stoney Road. It's now called Woodfield School. It was much against my own will. I didn't want to leave my friends behind and everything that I sort of knew in Longford at the other end of Coventry. And that feeling that I had back then when I was 9, about to be 10, I know that's how my kids are feeling now. And so my oldest son says he doesn't want to move. I get that. I know that he doesn't want to leave the friends behind. He doesn't want to leave the memories behind. I think there are a couple of reasons that make it really difficult as a young person to make a big move, like moving from the UK to Australia or from one side of a city to another. One of them being is that if you're sort of in a relatively safe, nurturing environment already, well, that's definitely your perception of it anyway. You have your friends, you have shelter, you have food. You're enjoying yourself, whether it be you're able to go out and be with your friends or you're on PlayStations, etc., in online worlds with your friends. Like, there's no reason for you to want to break out of that comfort zone, because you didn't know anything other than that. So just that sort of natural risk-averse nature of someone who thinks they're in a good position. Like when I look back to myself as a 9-year-old, I think that's how I felt. I didn't see any reason to move. I didn't want to move. And I see that now in my son especially. And having had the same experience, I definitely do not hold it against him or sort of try and fix it. Secondly, I would say, as a young person, you literally just do not have the same experience as someone older than you. So you've just got to sort of respect that as a parent or an adult, and acknowledge the fact that you've gone through more stuff than your child has. So you have that knowledge and they don't, and they will get it as they grow older. But don't get kind of frustrated at them for the fact that they are just kids. And they know what they know, and they appreciate what they know, and they know what they know, and they're comfortable with that. And there's literally nothing you can do, save for getting a time machine to sort of convince them otherwise. You just got to trust that your kids are going to sort of buy into what you're doing. And given time, when you make that move, just as I did, they'll come to understand the reasons that you made the move and the benefits that will come along with it. Until that point, you're just going to have to be patient, and things might go south at times. Things will definitely be difficult. That's the way I anticipate it. There'll be arguments, there'll be fallouts, there'll be tears, but that's life. I did mention something about a sliding doors moment for me earlier, and I do feel like there's a moment in my life where I think, like, what if this would have happened? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. I will warn you, I am going to talk about heavy things such as death and suicide, so please, if this affects you in any way, triggers you in any way, turn the video off now. As a kid, I don't know if you have someone that you've sort of had all those sort of formative memories of, the first person you used to play with. For me, I'm going to refer to that person not by his real name, but for me that guy was called Mark. And literally my earliest memories of sort of being out playing, and me and Mark on our tricycles, we had identical tricycles, and we kind of zipped around the estate on them. And that must have been about sort of 5-6 years old. A long time ago now, but you know, you look back on it and it was almost like out of a TV show. Everything was happy, everyone seemed to have the perfect sort of family home lives. Mark's family life was great, mine was great, and we just sort of met up and played outside and had fun. It's what kids do, right? So you can fast forward about a year now, maybe we're about 7 years old, and I just remember waking up sort of I think it was on Saturday morning, opening my curtains sort of faced the road at the front, and he lived about 7 doors down from me. I remember opening the curtains, I was probably woken up by sirens, and there's police cars, ambulances, and I think a fire engine outside of Mark's house. And obviously you have no idea what's going on at that age, you're 7 years old, but you know that police cars and fire engine and ambulances mean bad things. So a day or two goes by, and eventually sort of my parents explained to me that Mark's dad had taken his own life, which again is too much to comprehend as a 7-year-old. You just know that's really bad, that your friend who had this sort of really nice loving family all of a sudden hasn't got that. All of a sudden he's different to you. He doesn't have the mum and dad. He's only got his mum now, and it's weird. Obviously you carry on being friends and doing the things that you do, but things do start to change slightly. Between the ages of sort of 7 and 9, growing up in Longford on Chingford Road as we did, me and Mark and our friends around the area, particularly on that road, we spend a lot of time doing stuff that we shouldn't really be doing. We ended up We're doing stuff like playing on the train tracks. We're smoking cigarettes. We're setting fire to things and things like that we shouldn't be doing. But I noticed that Mark's sort of home life is not great. He never wants to be at home. I think his mum is struggling, understandably. And he's just sort of going slightly off the rails. And that sort of continues up to the point that I'm told by my parents that we're moving to the other side of the city. It's sort of the posh end. Which is fine. Obviously Mark is always going to sort of be my best friend. And I still don't want to leave him, even though things are sort of going off the tracks for both of us. Obviously him more than me, he's lost his dad. But then obviously I make the move. Against my own will, I move to the other side of the city. I go to a different school. I'm in one of the best public schools, one of the best free schools in Coventry. And I'm no longer living in Longford. I'm no longer with the people that were sort of setting fire to things, playing on the train tracks and smoking cigarettes. So I move house. I do things, I mix with the people that I mix with now, the people from the other side of the city. I end up doing alright at secondary school. I end up going to being the first person in my family to go to university. Occasionally I'd go back to the other end of the city to try and visit my old friends, like Mark, see what he's up to. And sort of along that secondary school journey, I'm asking about him, and I was playing football actually with someone who grew up around that area still, and he's sort of telling me about what Mark's been doing, and that Mark basically doesn't go to school anymore. He gave up on all that. He sort of fell in with the wrong crowd. He went to the house that we were told to stay away from, where everybody took drugs, and obviously eventually he ends up falling into that life for himself and ends up as a bit of an addict. At 30 years of age, Mark loses his life to drug addiction. He died of a heroin overdose. I found that in the local newspaper. And it hits you hard because of that person who was your first best friend, and through no fault of his own ends up in totally different circumstances to you. Ends up losing his own life. Me being the massive overthinker that I am, I just question all that and think, well, what if I never moved away? What if I didn't make that big move from that side of the town to the other? Would it have been me? You don't know. You don't know these things. I guess I'll never know, but it's kind of for those reasons and that story that I do believe that by changing the environment around you, the outcomes can be so different. Obviously the story's not 100% comparable with the lives of myself and my children at the minute. That story's hopefully a million miles away. However, I think it just highlights the fact that you never really know what's sort of coming down the tracks. And the only way you can really affect it is by taking action. I also think you're well within your rights to ask the question of, well, if you're sort of living in a relatively comfortable scenario now, how do you know that moving to a place that you've never lived before is a good idea and is going to improve your outcomes in life? And I think that is a solid question. And I think the only answer to that is you have to do your research. We've researched extensively about around Australia, and then sort of more precisely around Adelaide, about all sorts of conditions, the schooling, the weather, average salary. All that information is out there. A lot of the information is already on YouTube, and I'm sure you follow a lot of people who will give you that information. We try and provide some of that. We will try and provide some more of it via video content, but just a quick opportunity to shout out the website, check out our blog. We've written about some of the social aspects that we think are going to affect us when we make that move from the UK to Australia. And without a doubt, it is going to be a risk, but it's a risk that we're willing to take to provide better outcomes eventually for our family.